Alright everyone, so tonight we're going to take a look at what I think is a very interesting device from Xiaomi. This is the Redmi S2. So what makes this thing so interesting? Well, it kind of has an interesting array of specs, and so we'll go ahead and talk about that in just a little bit. But first thing I want to mention is what you get in the box. So this is the box it comes with, pretty typical Xiaomi box, and inside that box you get a 2 amp wall adapter. You can see it is the European version, at least the one that I have, and this is a global ROM version of the phone, so it does of course come with Google Play Store. It does also come with some LTE bands that will support LTE inside the US, so I get great LTE service with it. Tested it out a little bit earlier. Here's a little bit of one of the negatives. So it comes with a micro USB and then also a clear TPU case. You can see it's a pretty thin clear TPU case, but it's nice that it at least comes with one, so I don't have to go out and buy one. Now, one of the things I also want to mention here is the price. So you can see right now it's available at gearbest.com right there for $156. So for that $156, I think this is a pretty interesting and peculiar device. So let's go ahead and talk about that now. Alright, so let's go ahead and start off this discussion with the build quality of the Redmi S2. So one thing you'll notice right up here is we have a very nice display. It is a 6-inch 18:9 aspect ratio display. However, one of the negatives is the fact that it is only 720p. Now, it actually looks like a pretty decent 720p display. There are better and worse 720p displays. I will say that this one looks pretty darn good, at least to my eyes so far. Now, we have a 16 megapixel camera right up there up front. We have our earpiece, and then we also have an LED flash up front as well. On the bottom, you can see there's pretty much nothing, just the chin, and then we have our software buttons on top of that display. Now at the bottom, this is another negative. We kind of already discussed this, but we have micro USB for charging, a microphone over here, and a speaker. So not dual speakers, even though it might kind of look like it. We have a dual SIM, so that's kind of cool. So dual SIM, so you can actually put in 2 at the same time, and then also micro SD expansion. So it comes with 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage. You can see there's a fingerprint sensor right here on the back, our Mi branding, and then our dual camera setup with a 12 megapixel and 5 megapixel camera. And yes, they are real cameras. There's not a fake one in there, and the fingerprint sensor works very well. It doesn't really matter what Xiaomi device you get, they are very fast fingerprint sensors, so whatever they're doing, whatever they're using for their fingerprint sensors, it is working. So this back, despite looking what might be metal, is actually plastic. So this is a plastic backing, and then we have our volume rocker up here and our power button, and that's pretty much it when it comes to the build quality. Alright, so when it comes to performance, I think your expectations for this device can be pretty high, especially at this price point, because it comes with a Snapdragon 625 processor, 3 gigs of RAM, and 32 gigs of onboard storage. And again, it is expandable via micro SD card if you want to add on some additional storage. So now, if you're not familiar with the Snapdragon 625, let me just mention that that is a very efficient processor. So when it comes to both battery and in terms of performance, so this thing will perform probably quite well. Obviously, this is just a very first impression of the device, but if history is any kind of indicator of what I can expect with the Snapdragon 625 processor, so far it's been a great processor in every device that I've ever tested it out in. Alright, so as far as the software is concerned, you can see that we are running Android 8.1 with the March security patch, and right down here you can see we are running MIUI, and right now it is at MIUI 9.5. That's a global ROM. So global ROM basically just means that it's going to have the Google Play Store, as you can see here, and support LTE bands throughout the world. So let's go ahead and jump in here. In the settings, one of the things you'll notice about MIUI is the fact that there are just a boatload of settings and tweaks that you can make to this device. So we can go into this additional settings, and you can see that there are just all kinds of things you can do here. We got quick ball, button and gesture shortcuts, notification light. We have some headphone audio effects. So the headphone jack is right up here on the top. We do also have an IR blaster that I forgot to mention earlier. We have one-handed mode, accessibility, printing, all kinds of things available on here. MIUI is definitely a feature feature-packed software system. However, I will mention that for some people, that's maybe just a little bit of a negative. It's not a stock experience, but it's something you can probably get used to over time. And I will also mention that this theme store will probably be your friend. If you don't like MIUI, obviously you can throw Nova Launcher on it or something like that, but there's also a ton of themes, including ones that give you a more stock experience. Alright, so now it's time to talk about the battery on this phone. So this comes with a 3080 milliamp hour battery, and again, that is coupled with the Snapdragon 625. Now, with this being my first day, I cannot tell you with any kind of certainty what kind of battery life you will get out of this device. However, if history is any kind of indicator of the future, then you can probably expect this to be definitely an all-day battery, because that combination of the 625 processor with at least 3000 milliamps tends to be very good. And in general, I would say in previous devices that I've had that combination, usually I was getting around 6 to 7 hours of screen on time. So that's about what I would expect with this device. However, obviously with it being MIUI, that could make a little bit of a difference. But I would say in general, you could probably expect some pretty good battery life, but we'll have to test that out as we get more involved with this phone. Alright, so now let's talk about these cameras. So we have a 12 and 5 megapixel camera, and up front we have a 16 megapixel shooter, as I mentioned before, and again we do also have LED flash. Now, when it comes to the cameras, we can shoot in, of course, up to 12 megapixels when it comes to the to the rear facing camera. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick shot just so you can see how fast this thing takes a shot. Very, very fast shutter speed. That is awesome. Another thing I also want to mention is that when you got video, we can only shoot in 1080p, so that may be just a bit of a negative, but we do have HDR available. If I slide it over to video, I'm going to go ahead and go into the settings. You can see we have slow motion and time-lapse available, and again, it will shoot in up to 1080p. We do also have a portrait mode, and so far I've got to say it's been very impressive, and I really think that at this price point, this really could be some of the best cameras, at least in my initial impressions, in a phone at this price point. Now, we do also have square, panorama, and then also manual shooting modes as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of take a quick look at some of the pictures I shot earlier. So that's one in portrait mode, just to take a picture of the glasses I have sitting over here. And this is another one of my Blue Yeti microphone, and it did a great job of blurring out the background and really highlighting the foreground, which I think is really great. So far, I think these really could be cameras to be reckoned with, especially at this price point. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the pros and the cons, and again, these are just initial impressions of this device. So, first pro, the price. I think the $156 price point is a darn good one for this phone. Second thing is the performance. The Snapdragon 625 processor with 3 gigs of RAM in the past has been very good, and I think it'll also be quite good with this phone. Number 3, the battery life. I think battery life, again, because it's running that Snapdragon 625 processor, will be also very, very good. And number 4, I think these cameras really could be some of the best cameras on a device at this price point. Alright, so we've talked about some of the things that will probably be great on this device. Now it's time to talk about some of the things that maybe would cause you to pause in buying this phone. So 3 things that I want to mention right off the bat. Number 1, there is no dual band Wi-Fi. It does only have 2.4 gigahertz. So if you have dual band Wi-Fi, this does not support 5 gigahertz. So that's the first one. Number 2 is the 720p display. So maybe for some of you that are pixel peepers, you may not want to buy this phone because obviously at 720p you are going to be able to see some pixels. I think it looks actually quite good. I don't think it's a bad 720p display, but that is something worth mentioning. Number 3 is micro USB. I really wish it was Type-C. I don't think that in 2018, regardless of the price point, that it should come with micro USB. It's a slight negative. It's not a huge one, but definitely something worth mentioning. Now, is this a phone I think you should consider if you're looking for a phone at that $150 roughly price point? Definitely. I think in comparison to some other devices I've reviewed in the past and more recent history, I think that this one is definitely one to be reckoned with. Those cameras especially, the battery life, and the performance are three things I think really are great selling points for the Redmi S2. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. Stay tuned for more in-depth look at the Redmi S2 in the very near future. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.